Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jets. The firm is pitching a partnership with Bombardier and promising to create up to 10,000 jobs along with it.
Canada to do their own upgrades, to build parts of it, to do final assembly and test. We, as Saab, we are prepared to do that technology transfer to Canada and support that building.
The company that makes the Gripen has told CTV News that 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its military fleet.
In March 2025, a single announcement from Ottawa sent ripples far beyond Canada's borders. The defense minister revealed that the government was taking a hard second look at its agreement to purchase 88 F-35 fighter jets from Lockheed Martin, a move few observers expected. The contract, initially priced at 19 billion Canadian dollars, had already climbed to 27.7 billion, with long-term projections reaching as high as 33 billion. While the ballooning cost alone raised eyebrows, the real shock came from what Ottawa was openly considering next. Canada was weighing a return to Sweden's Gripen E, the same aircraft that had lost the F-35 during the 2021 competition. No NATO country had ever gone this far after formally committing to America's flagship fighter program. The decision suggested more than simple budget anxiety or procurement drama. It hinted at a deeper reassessment of how a middle power balances alliance loyalty, national sovereignty, and strategic independence in an increasingly tense global environment. TO understand why Canada was willing to reopen a deal of this magnitude so late and so publicly. It is necessary to look back at the country's long and uneven path toward the F-35. That story stretches back nearly 2 decades. In 2010, Ottawa made a bold and controversial move by announcing plans to buy 65 F-35s without holding a competitive tender. The decision immediately sparked political backlash and public concern. Critics warned that the government was committing to a complex and expensive program without fully understanding its long-term financial and strategic implications. Questions arose about cost transparency, operational suitability, and whether Canada's defense needs truly align with those of the United States and other partners driving the program. Supporters counted that the F-35 represented the future of air combat and guaranteed seamless interoperability with key allies. The debate became so intense that by 2014, the government was forced to put the entire plan back under review, reopening questions many believed had already been settled. Years of studies, delays, and political debate followed. Eventually, Ottawa returned to the table with a full and open competition. In 2023, after evaluating multiple contenders, the government once again selected the F-35A, this time committing to 88 aircraft. The decision was presented as definitive, the product of exhaustive analysis and careful comparison. Officials described it as the largest defense procurement in Canadian history, both in scale and cost. Under the agreement, the first 16 jets were scheduled for delivery in early 2026, with the remainder arriving in stages through 2032. These aircraft were intended to replace the CF-18 Hornets, which had served Canada for more than 40 years, but were becoming increasingly expensive and difficult to maintain. At the time of signing, the government emphasized that the choice was final and that Canada had secured the best aircraft for its needs. That sense of certainty did not last. As 2025 approached, the political and economic context surrounding the program began to shift rapidly. Trade relations between Canada and the United States grew increasingly strained under President Donald Trump. He openly threatened sweeping tariffs on Canadian exports, including proposed 25% tariff on most goods, sending shockwaves through industries already under pressure. His rhetoric went further, with public remarks suggesting that Canada should consider becoming the 51st U.S. state. These comments sparked outrage across the country and hardened public attitudes toward economic and political dependence on Washington. Defense policy, once treated as a technical and largely separate issue, suddenly became entangled with broader questions of sovereignty, autonomy, and national dignity. The turning point came in June 2025, when Auditor General Karen Hogan released a report that fundamentally reshaped public understanding of the F-35 program. Her findings revealed that the widely cited $19 billion price tag did not reflect the true cost of the project. When infrastructure upgrades, advanced weapons, training systems, and initial operating expenses were included, The cost rose to $27.7 billion. Over the full life cycle of the aircraft, Hogan warned, total costs could reach as high as $33 billion. That represented an increase of nearly 75% over the figure originally presented to Parliament. The numbers landed with force, not just because of their size, but because they confirmed long-standing fears that the program's true costs had been understated from the outset. With those figures now public, Ottawa faced renewed pressure to justify whether the F-35 still represented the best option for Canada. The debate shifted away from pure performance metrics and toward questions of value, control, and long-term consequences. It was at this moment that an old competitor quietly re-entered the conversation. Saab, the Swedish aerospace company behind the Gripen, had lost the 2021 competition but never fully disengaged from Canada. The firm maintained relationships with Canadian officials and defense planners, positioning itself as a viable alternative should doubts about the F-35 resurface. Those ties became more visible in August 2025, when Canada and Sweden signed a new framework agreement focused on defense and aerospace cooperation, with a strong emphasis on Arctic security. The timing was striking. The Arctic had become increasingly central to Canada's defense strategy as Russia and China expanded their activities in the region. Saab was quick to emphasize that the Gripen was designed in Sweden, a country with its own experience operating advanced aircraft in harsh northern environments. The company framed the jet as particularly well suited to Arctic conditions, dispersed basing, and rapid turnaround operations. Saab's proposal went well beyond aircraft specifications. The company pledged to assemble every Gripen in Canada and offered full technology transfer, allowing Canadian technicians to maintain, modify, and upgrade the jets without needing foreign approval. This level of access stood in sharp contrast to the F-35 program, which relies on tightly controlled U.S.-led logistics and software systems. Saab also promised significant economic benefits, estimating that the program would create between 12,000 and 12,600 jobs across Canada's aerospace sector. Those figures immediately drew political attention and shifted the tone of the debate. What had once been framed as a narrow choice between two aircraft increasingly became a broader discussion about industrial policy and economic independence. Industry Minister Melanie Joly publicly stated that Canada needed to demand more in return for its military procurement spending. She confirmed that discussions were underway about assembling the Gripen in Canada, reinforcing the idea that defense purchases could be used to strengthen domestic industry rather than simply fulfill military requirements. Saab also emphasized adaptability as a core advantage. Representatives from Saab Canada argued that the company had moved beyond rigid ideas of aircraft generations. Instead, they promoted the Gripen as a platform designed for continuous upgrades, capable of evolving as technology changes. In an era of rapid advances in sensors, electronic warfare, and artificial intelligence, flexibility and control over upgrades were presented as just as important as stealth or raw performance. For many in Ottawa, that argument resonated deeply. The F-35 offered cutting-edge capabilities, but at the cost of long-term dependence on a foreign system. The renewed interest in the Gripen reflected a growing desire to balance military effectiveness with sovereignty, affordability, and strategic independence. In an uncertain world. From this tense environment emerged a compromise idea that began circulating quietly in policy and defense circles. Canada, some suggested, could accept delivery of the first 16 F-35s already paid for, then complete the rest of its fighter fleet with Canadian-built Gripen aircraft. On paper, the concept appeared elegant. It seemed to preserve alliance credibility with the United States while reclaiming a degree of industrial autonomy at home. In practice, however, the proposal raised difficult questions that refused to stay buried. Those questions intensified in December 2025 when Radio Canada published leaked evaluation documents from the 2021 Future Fighter Capability Project. The documents offered a rare and unfiltered look at how Canada's own defense analysts had judged the competing aircraft. The results were stark. Out of a possible 60 points, the F-35 scored 57.1, while the Gripen received just 19.8. In mission effectiveness, the F-35 was rated at 97%, compared with 22% for the Gripen. On long-term upgrade potential across the aircraft's life cycle, the F-35 achieved a perfect score of 100%, while the Gripen reached only 28%. These were not marginal gaps or differences of interpretation. They reflected a fundamental disparity in capability as assessed by Canada's own evaluators. Senior figures within the Royal Canadian Air Force responded publicly and forcefully. Retired Lieutenant General Yvonne Blondin emphasized that any aircraft selected would ultimately carry Canadian pilots into combat, particularly in the Arctic, where advanced Russian and Chinese systems are increasingly active. In that environment, he argued, survival depends on overwhelming technological superiority, not balance or compromise. Major General Chris McKenna echoed that view, stating bluntly that Canada required absolute overmatch. He warned that a mixed fleet built around 16 F-35s supplemented by an undefined number of Gripens would fail to deliver the deterrent power of a full fleet of 88 stealth fighters. In his view, partial capability was not simply inefficient, but potentially dangerous. Industry leaders added their own warnings. Bombardier CEO Eric Martel cautioned that withdrawing from the F-35 program could trigger serious consequences for Canadian firms holding U.S. government defense contracts. Bombardier alone maintains two such agreements, one involving liaison aircraft and another focused on surveillance platforms. A sudden shift in defense policy could place those contracts at risk, along with opportunities for dozens of smaller Canadian suppliers embedded in the same ecosystem. The economic fallout, critics argued, could extend well beyond the fighter program itself. Even the Gripen alternative carried dependencies that complicated the narrative of independence. The aircraft relies on the American-made General Electric F414 engine, meaning export licenses would still require U.S. approval. Analysts noted that Washington has used such leverage in the past, delaying or denying approvals to influence political outcomes. In that sense, switching aircraft would not automatically remove American influence over Canada's Air Force. Public debate also became increasingly shaped by concerns over control and sovereignty. Online, fears circulated about a supposed kill switch in the F-35 that could allow the United States to remotely disable Allied aircraft. While both Lockheed Martin and the Pentagon have repeatedly denied the existence of any such capability, the rumor gained traction on Canadian social media and deepened skepticism. The real issue, however, lies elsewhere. The F-35 depends on continuous software updates managed by the Pentagon's Joint Program Office. That office controls maintenance systems, upgrade pathways, and most critically, the aircraft source code. With the exception of Israel, no customer nation receives access to that code. Without regular updates, the aircraft's effectiveness would degrade rapidly,